Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, I'm taking you to the Ultra Holiday Cup one final time to meet a Shadow Shiny Obstagoon that's trying to Hyper Beam everything in its path. These battles were submitted to the channel by a member of the community ARB, so many thanks for the battle submission. Shadow Shiny Obstagoon isn't the only Shadow Pokemon on this team, as this trainer pairs it up with a Shadow Alolan Ninetales and a Shadow Golurk for some triple Shadow fun. Now, this is definitely more of a team for fun than for climbing, but what better way to send off the Ultra League Holiday Cup than with some Shadow Hyper Beams? So without further ado, let's hop into the matches. And in game number 1, we're off to a very neutral start, leading Alolan Ninetales into Dusnoir. Now, this is not the Shadow Dusnoir that we're used to. This is the non-Shadow, which means that even if they go for a Dynamic Punch, Alolan Ninetales is not going to get knocked out. So for Ninetales, this should be a pretty safe no-shield. Ninetales thinks about it, does not put up the shield, it's only a Shadow Punch. Now Ninetales will be able to deliver a knockout with Weather Ball. Dusnoir says no, puts up the shield. Dusnoir does not like the Powder Snow damage, it's getting the Dusnoir very low, so Dusnoir will take the KO with Shadow Punch. Unfortunately, there's not great options for how to farm this down. In comes Golurk, opponent gets aggressive, pivots into Bombardier, and look at the damage. Golurk is getting deleted. Golurk makes Dynamic Punch, big damage onto Bombardier, and now in comes Obstagoon. This is the Shadow Shiny Obstagoon. Rock Tomb or Fly, either would do quite a lot of damage. It's the Rock Tomb from the opponent, debuffing the Obstagoon. Obstagoon does have a Night Slash loaded, so when Dusnoir hits the field, it's not going to make a Dynamic Punch. Night Slash will take the knockout, no boost for Obstagoon. In the back is Galarian Moltres, and there's only one win con, and its name is Hyper Beam. Moltres fires off the fly, the shield comes up from the Obstagoon. Obstagoon is debuffed, farm it up, it's so many counters, but Shadow Shiny Obstagoon makes the Hyper Beam. Do they respect it? They do not! Down goes Galarian Moltres, and that's a good game. Hopping into the next match, picking up a bit of a tricky lead, Alolan Ninetales into Ferrothorn. If Ferrothorn is running Mirror Shot or Flash Cannon, then this matchup could get very tricky very quickly. Ninetales gonna start off with a Weather Ball, getting some nice chip damage, but the Ferrothorn has farmed up to the Flash Cannon. Immediate shield comes out from the Ninetales, just gonna be a Power Whip from the Ferrothorn, and this next charge attack will be very telling. If they only throw the Power Whip, so in one more Bullet Seed, then they don't have it. So they do not have the Flash Cannon, so Ninetales will be able to no-shield here. Power Whip does quite a lot of damage, but it will not knock out, and Ninetales gets a full farm down. Opponent sends out Aurorus, building up to the Dazzling Gleam, gonna bait with a Weather Ball, hoping for the shield, but Aurorus no shields, and in comes Obstagoon. Obstagoon, these counters are shredding, the opponent stays in. How weak are they to Obstagoon in the back? Weather Ball is gonna land, in comes Jellicent, and they are completely core broken by the Shadow Shiny Obstagoon. Obstagoon Night Slash is gonna land, gets the Night Slash boost, and this Obstagoon is about to be a runaway train. Surf lands, but these hexes are triple resisted, Jellicent. You're never ever farming down. Obstagoon goes for the Night Slash. This is an absolute disaster for the opponent. They're forced to put up the shield. They go for the Surf just for it to be caught onto the Ninetales. Ninetales will get knocked out. Opponent does not go for an undercharge. And now back in comes the Obstagoon. Opponent tries for a catch, sending in Aurorus. Aurorus could have Powder Snow down, so Obstagoon is forced to fire off the Night Slash. Obstagoon actually does get farmed down, but now it's Golurk's turn to get the farm. Back in comes the Jellicent. Jellicent needs back-to-back charge attacks, and it just cannot get there. Golurk, with that one Mudslap head start, makes the Shadow Punch, KOs the Jellicent, and secures the win. We move to game number 3. Shadow Alolan Ninetales now going to be greeted with an Alolan Ninetales. We've got the mirror lead. Let's check their fast move. Are they on Powder Snow as well? They are on Powder Snow. So this matchup will be all about landing charge attacks, and the opponent makes an important reveal. They are on Psyshock. They're not on Dazzling Gleam. They threw before Dazzling Gleam Energy. Psyshock is cheaper, so they'll be able to spam out the Psyshocks faster, but it does not get same type attack bonus. So the opponent won't quite be able to inflict as much damage compared to the Dazzling Gleam. Like this second Psyshock probably will not take the knockout. Alolan Ninetales able to hang on, make it to a second Dazzling Gleam, and really ramp up the pressure on the opponent. There's the final shield. Aggressive save switch into the Shadow Obstagoon, but Obstagoon, it can absorb a Weather Ball, but the Weather Ball damage is really going to add up. Obstagoon really hoping that the Ninetales will switch out, because this Obstagoon doesn't have Cross Chop. Normally, if it had Cross Chop, it could take a knockout here, but with Night Slash, it definitely cannot, and the opponent's refusing to switch. They're just staying in. The lack of cross-chop, a massive problem for the Obstagoon. There's the switch out into Licky. Unfortunately, no Hyper Beam this time, as Obstagoon will go for the Night Slash. Night Slash is going to connect, no boost this time. Obstagoon getting outpaced, and a very nice catch onto the Alolan Ninetales. This will set up the Obstagoon to potentially make the Hyper Beam. Switch block will have to be waited here. Opponent is switch locked on the Licky. Back in comes the Obstagoon, and it's Hyper Beam time. No shields left to hide behind. It's Licky getting KO'd by Hyper Beam. Opponent sends in the Ninetales. Ninetales gets farmed down. What could they have in the back? It's Jellicent in the back. But this is not great, because Jellicent will be able to make a Shadow Ball into the Golurk. Golurk is just getting KO'd here, as there's just no way Golurk ever lives a Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball lands, down goes Golurk. Obstagoon is going to get farmed down. It gets hexed down, triple resisted. Oh, that is a very unfortunate end to a game. We see a familiar lead in the next match. Shadow Alolan Ninetales into Dusnoir, but this time it is the Shadow Dusnoir. Ninetales farming up to the Dazzling Gleam. Dusnoir may actually have to respect the Gleam here. Weather Ball, no they don't, gets no shielded, and the opponent immediately undertaps what could be a Dynamic Punch. The no shield Dynamic Punch rocks the Ninetales. Ninetales barely able to hang on and make the last second Weather Ball. Weather Ball shielded up by the Dusnoir. Aggressive pivot into the Golurk. Golurk tries to snipe down, but unfortunately the Dusnoir too bulky, and it's able to grab a shield with Shadow Punch. The opponent brings in Licky, but Licky's normally good matchup against Golurk. That matchup advantage has been nullified by the energy head start on Golurk. Licky wins the matchup by outpacing the Golurk, but up to Mud Slaps, suddenly Golurk can make the Dynamic Punch. So Golurk gets to connect with the hard-hitting Dynamic Punch. The Mud Slaps have added up quite a bit. Dynamic Punch lands. Oh, the 1 HP survive from Licky, but that's a devastating catch of the Shadow Ball onto the Alolan Ninetales. In comes Golurk. Opponent sends in Credilli, but due to the one-turn switch, this is going to be a charge attack priority tie. They get the Grass Knot on CMP 2 Dynamic Punch. That is devastating damage onto Credilli. For the opponent, the only moral victory they get here is they will get to see the Shadow Shiny Obstagoon. In comes Obstagoon, getting that counter farm down. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. Hopping into the next match, Ninetales into Stunfisk, an incredibly good lead. Opponent safe switches into Charizard, and this is a Dragon Breath Charizard, and it doesn't even build up to Blast Burn. Instead, it just goes for Air Cutter. Air Cutter really not going to cut it in this matchup, no pun intended. Weather Ball shielded up by the Charizard, but man, this opponent was completely unprepared for Powder Snow Alolan Ninetales, and they are feeling the pressure. Even if they go for another Air Cutter, it will miss the knockout. However, considering the Ninetales is super valuable, Ninetales is going to be putting up the shield. It is the Air Cutter. Ninetales can't quite get the Weather Ball. Ninetales will go for a double shield, but winning switch advantage will be big because Golurk will be able to absolutely shut down the Stunfisk. Opponent saves the Charizard, sends in the Stunfisk just to get absolutely Golurked. Golurk gonna be hit with the Mud Bomb. Golurk, by double resisting these Thunder Shocks, will be able to survive 2 Mud Bombs pretty comfortably and look to farm it into Shadow Punch range. The name of the game for Golurk is leaving with a charge attack loaded, because Golurk should be able to output some pretty nice damage into whatever gets brought in. Opponent sends in a Galarian Moltres, unfortunately did not click the Dynamic Punch, instead fired off the Shadow Punch, actually got damage registration error to get that charge stack. Opponent will make a very nice catch as they catch the Weather Ball onto their Charizard. Unfortunately, the Ninetales just has a Dazzling Gleam ready to go, so it doesn't really end up being much of a catch because Dazzling Gleam is going to be picking up the one-hit knockout onto the Golurk and taking the win. We see the Dream lead in the next match, Alolan Ninetales into Galarian Moltres. But the Virizion safe switch is a big problem for this backline, so unfortunately Ninetales is going to have to stay in. Ninetales puts up the shield, respecting the Stone Edge, but it's not the Stone Edge. Opponent only ends up going for a Sacred Sword. But Ninetales has so much offensive pressure in this matchup, Weather Ball after Weather Ball crashing into Virizion, and Virizion's going to have to give up both shields if it doesn't want to get knocked out. Virizion decides to double down, putting up both shields. Ninetales, this could be a Stone Edge, no shields, calling that it's just a Sacred Sword. Ninetales able to win switch advantage and shield advantage. So the opponent, they took a calculated gamble, ABA weak to ice, and it backfires in a big way. In comes Skeleturge, immediate switch into Obstagoon. Obstagoon makes the Night Slash, but loses charge attack priority to the Skeleturge. Skeleturge's Torch Song does do substantial damage, and it's going to be boosting up Skeleturge's attack. Skeleturge really wants to KO in 2 Incinerates here. It's going to be very close. Obstagoon, 1 HP survive. Obstagoon barely hangs on. It could have made the Night Slash that forces the opponent out. They have to send in Galarian Moltres. And unfortunately, Moltres is going to get absolutely shredded by the Shadow Weather Ball from Ninetales. Weather Ball lands, Moltres barely able to hang on 1 HP, but at this point, Golurk can take this win. Moltres actually on Ancient Power, they get the boost as well just to get farmed down by Golurk. Golurk mud slaps down the Skeleturge to secure the win. We move to the next match, leading Alolan Ninetales into Bellibolt. Bellibolt's fast move will make or break this matchup, and its Sucker Punch, that is incredibly good news. Not only does Sucker Punch have way worse pacing than Thundershock, but it's going to be resisted in this matchup. So suddenly this matchup is very playable for the Ninetales, whereas with Thundershock, Bellibolt just ramps up, and it can be a big problem. Parabolic Charge going to buff up the defense for Bellibolt, but that's not a Weather Ball. Ninetales going for the home run shot here, going for the Dazzling Gleam. Dazzling Gleam, big damage, Powder Snow down, and Alolan Ninetales wins switch advantage. In comes Jellicent, immediate pivot out into the Obstagoon. Opponent sends out Galarian Moltres, and I think we know how this ends. Moltres gets the fly. Obstagoon has to decide, is it worth the shield? Obstagoon not going to shield, farm it up to the Hyper Beam. Will they respect it? Come on, Shadow Obstagoon, Hyper Beam. No, they shield it. Oh, that is absolutely devastating. And that is a big swing of momentum for the opponent. This Obstagoon is very low, getting knocked out by the fly. Back in comes the Ninetales, answered with the Jellicent, and Jellicent will throw energy. It's going to be up to Golurk to try and close out that game, but oh my goodness, I was so ready to see the Hyper Beam land. That is absolutely devastating. Golurk's Shadow Punch will not take the knockout. Jellicent will be able to hang on, and that is a problem for Golurk. Jellicent should make back-to-back Surfs, and once Golurk doesn't have shields, Golurk does not have the energy reserves needed to outpace the Galarian Moltres before it gets the fly. Surf is going to be double shielded, the Mud Slap will KO, back in comes the Moltres, but unfortunately, even with a successful Shadow Punch bait, Golurk just cannot hope to win. The shield comes up from Galarian Moltres, and there is the fly right on cue. Man, the Hyper Beam, if it landed, would have been instantly game-winning, but losing all that energy to a Hyper Beam shielded, unfortunately, was too much to recover from. Very bad lead. Oh my goodness, this team is so ABA weak. The Talonflame, the save switch Golurk, but this game should basically just be over. Opponent switches out of a Talonflame. They save the Talonflame and they bring in Obstagoon. This is not what you want to switch into a Golurk that has like a 5 Mud Slap head start. Obstagoon is going to have to respect Dynamic Punch. That's double super effective. Obstagoon goes for the Night Slash, but does not get the boost. Golurk goes for a massive overfarm just shy of the back-to-back dynamics. Obstagoon will be able to outpace. In comes the Ninetales and gets the catch as the opponent fires off that Night Slash. Night Slash not going to do much. Unfortunately, back in comes the Talonflame, and it's looking to ramp up more than likely with Flame Charge. It is the Flame Charge that's devastating damage. Ninetales barely able to survive the Incinerate damage, but for being incredibly ABA weak to Talonflame, somehow this game was not a complete auto loss. Back in comes Golurk, opponent throws on alignment, and Golurk gets a Mud Slap for free. Golurk has to hope that the Mud Slap that snuck +3 more will KO, because if they do, and they do, the second Incinerate does not register. Golurk now exits low on health, but with a ton of energy. Opponent reveals their final Pokemon in the back is a Mud Slap Torterra. Torterra will take significant damage from Dynamic Punch, and it's all up to Obstagoon. Opponent brings in their own Obstagoon just to get farmed down. They do not make it to the cross chop, and back in comes Torterra. Torterra should be able to absorb this Night Slash. It's going to be a close race to the finish, but Obstagoon gets the boost, counters down. That would have been a close game, but the moment the boost happened, it was all over. Hopping to the final match, and we've got a great lead in a battle of fairy types, Alolan Ninetales into Togekiss. Now, Togekiss is going to get absolutely shredded in this matchup. It looked like the Ninetales tried to throw the Weather Ball there on the CMP tie. Opponent actually has Ancient Power, but unfortunately the Weather Ball did not trigger. Well, Ninetales is at back-to-back Weather Balls now, so this Togekiss is in some serious danger. They no shield and send in Obstagoon. Obstagoon, we've seen these Weather Balls add up quite a bit. This is the non-Shadow Obstagoon. However, Obstagoon looking for a farm down that it's not going to get before Weather Ball number 2 will be reached. This Weather Ball is going to be shielded up by the Obstagoon, but unfortunately, Obstagoon's energy is very threatening into this team. In comes the Golurk. Golurk can survive a Night Slash, but this is going to hurt. Golurk no shields just like that. Half of its HP down the drain. Opponent pivots into Galarian Moltres, and one final time, Can Obstagoon land a Hyper Beam? Obstagoon puts up the shield as Moltres goes for the fly. Obstagoon, oh my goodness. Counter, its energy generation is so slow. Obstagoon gonna be shielding up fly number 2, and it all comes down to this. If this Hyper Beam is shielded, there's no way this game can be a win. Obstagoon farming up. Do they respect it? Hyper Beam takes the knockout. Down goes Galarian Moltres, and back in comes the Obstagoon. Obstagoon fires off the cross chop. That's big damage. Obstagoon survives, landing critical counter damage. Golurk gets the farm down on very low HP, and that is a good game. All in all, I can't think of a better send-off for the Ultra Holiday Cup, which ended up being a really fun meta than a video like this of a trainer just looking to have some fun, running a Shadow Shiny Obstagoon with Hyper Beam, and landed some pretty epic one-shots on Galarian Moltres along the way. It really felt like Galarian Moltres was the main target to the Hyper Beams. There was a Licky Licky, but the Licky Licky didn't have shields. And to me, honestly, my favorite kind of nuke move is the kind of nuke move where the opponent has a shield and just decides not to use it. And with something like an Obstagoon, people expect Cross Chop, because Cross Chop gives you greater consistency against Licky Licky. So they think, okay, I'm a Galarian Moltres, why am I ever going to be shielding a Cross Chop when that's going to do like 2 total damage? And then they get absolutely blasted out of the sky by a Hyper Beam. So some very entertaining battles. I do really hope that in future seasons we get more Ultra League limited metas. I think the Ultra League limited metas are some of the most fun metas that we have. There's so many Pokemon that aren't usually viable that have really nice viability. I know in like the previous Ultra Summer Cup, Pokemon like Toedscruel and Kingdra were very good. Now we have this Ultra Holiday Cup where you have Pokemon like XL Oranguru, Spiritomb, Aurorus, Obstagoon, so many Pokemon that can't really quite break into the main meta just because the power level is so high, because we've had a lot of seasons in a row of buffs and haven't really had much in the way of meaningful nerfs. But it kind of led some of those Pokemon that have kind of been pushed to the side a little chance to shine. And overall, I think that ends up being, most of the time, a pretty enjoyable cup experience. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoy watching content like this, please do consider leaving a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And an extra special thank you, as always, to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is sincerely appreciated. Thank you guys so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.